Okay.
Hi, Jackie. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Excellent. Okay. I'm going to pull up all of our stuff for today.
I forgot to tell you, I made the slides for this presentation for Jackie. She had me do that. She sent me the
Talk it before I knew. So I told her,
Hope they worked out.
Okay. According to my clock, we've reached the 4 o'clock hour, and I'd like to first welcome everyone today. I'm Jackie Hinton. I serve as the chair of the NKN CAC. Thank you all for participating this afternoon, and a huge thanks, as always, to Sarah Absher, our county's Director of Community Development, who has spent and continues to invest countless hours providing her guidance and support to our community as we navigate this process. So, Sarah, I hope you understand just how grateful our community is for that.
Thank you,
And then-
Jackie. And that goes back to all of you too. Thank you for hanging in there with me and doing this work.
Now for some housekeeping matters. I think most of you may be able to do these from memory, but just in case, you'll be muted throughout the meeting, and that's just to be able to not have background noise interfering with the speakers. But if you have a question or comment, please use the raised hand function, and then someone will call on you. And once you've been recognized, please remember to lower that hand so we can keep track of who's still got questions. We also ask, and for every virtual meeting, that you please identify yourself both by your first and last name. That helps our community get familiar with one another. It also makes it easier for us to maintain our attendance records and to streamline our voting process when votes come up. As always, we continue to ask for your help in recruiting additional community members to register as a member at NKNCAC.org. This not only supports our communication efforts, but it strengthens the CAC and enables it to appropriately represent the views of the overall Neocani community. And with that, Sarah, can you put up my first slide? According to our bylaws, April has been designated as our annual meeting. So to start out today, I'd like to do a review of our prior year's activities, recognize community members who have volunteered their time and talents, and then look forward to some opportunities to enhance our Neocani community. The annual meeting is also the time to elect new officers. Our bylaws established a 2-year term for officers, so there'll be no election this year. Our current officers are Amy Bell, serving as vice chair, Terry DeSaro as secretary, and again, I serve as chair. Today, I'll provide a brief review of what we've accomplished during our first year as a CAC. Then Sarah will provide us with a preview of what lies ahead. If you can put up the second slide, Sarah, please. Although there wasn't room on this timeline, or for our formation of the CAC goes way back to 2021, when Mark Roberts, Sarah, and I worked together to begin building a community contact list and holding several town hall meetings. We've worked to learn about what a CAC is, what value it has to our community, and to determine Neocani's level of interest in forming one. 4 years later, in June of 2025, the Neocani community approved and adopted its CAC bylaws. The process included formation of an ad hoc committee of community volunteers, which drafted proposed bylaws with Sarah's guidance. Committee members were Rob Davidson, Brian Eggers, Elia Friedman, Jackie Hinton, Ken Jones, and Ann Morgan. We also had to obtain the Board of County of Commissioners approval of our proposed bylaws, which we received. Our bylaws call for quarterly meetings, general meetings to be held in July, October, January, and April. In July, we began our CAC with the election of officers, including a chair, vice chair, and secretary. In October, the CAC continued to review the proposed middle housing zoning changes and voted to approve the zoning standard proposals, which had been recommended by the Ad hoc Advisory Committee of Community Volunteers, which preceded the CAC. Those committee members were Tom Ayers, Dave Boone, Hans Kretschmer, and Lloyd Lindley, who served as chair. This committee worked very hard under Sarah's guidance, and its meetings were subject to public meeting laws. Following that, which don't have room on this slide for. There were a series of hearings. And the first hearing was before the Land Use Planning Commission, and then that was followed by the Board of County Commissioners. During this process, concerns were raised regarding potential impacts of some of NeoConnie's proposed zoning standard changes and on relating to middle housing and the 2 HOA neighborhoods within NeoConnie. In the end, the commissioners approved the retention of NeoConnie's residential height restrictions. So those stand as they always have. And agreed to allow the NeoConnie CAC to continue to work on the other proposed standards in consideration of the concerns raised during the hearing process. In our January meeting, Chris Laity joined us. He's the Tillamook County Director of Roads and Public Works. He provided us with an excellent review of county transportation matters, including a focus on NeoConnie. Presentation materials and meeting recording for that meeting are available on the NeoConnie CAC page of the county's website. And that brings us to today, when we're celebrating, I guess, our annual meeting, and we'll get to hear some updates from Sarah Absher. Sarah, if you'll pick up on my third slide.
You want to share this?
Do you want me to stay on this slide, Jackie, or would you like me to go to the
Yes.
fourth one?
Sorry, I was looking down. I didn't
No,
see you
it's
hold
okay.
it up.
I don't want to, I want to do the job right.
You're not getting much help from this end.
No, you're great.
So
The code?
going back to
Nope.
to better understand some of the steps that were necessary in the formation of the CAC, we successfully adopted bylaws and obtained the commissioner's approval. We elected executive board members, the chair, vice chair, and secretary, and we officially established the CAC Land Use Committee, consisting of community members Danielle Connor, Jackie Hinton, Hans Kretschmer, Lisa McClellan, Craig Nern, and Mike Wooden. As with all our subcommittees, this subcommittee will work under Sarah's guidance and is subject to public meeting laws. And the next slide, please. We also established communication systems. We developed the NeoConnie CAC website with online member registration and set up NeoConnie's CAC email accounts. Thanks to the efforts of Mary Roberts, Terry DeSaro, and Elia Friedman, who worked quite hard to get all that done in record time. We have been engaged and continue in that process of CAC member recruitment. We widely communicated CAC purpose and value to the community. And we actually have registered 186 members to date. I found a duplicate registration, so that should be 186. There's one additional group of community volunteers I'd like to recognize before we close with this. We initially expected to establish an ad hoc subcommittee to consider modification of NeoConnie's STR cap. But as you'll hear from Sarah, it turns out that's not going to be necessary. However, I do want to thank the following people for generously offering to serve on this subcommittee. That includes Amy Bell, Dave Boone, Ryan Eggers, Ken Jones, Ann Morgan, and Mark Murray. Now let's welcome Sarah Absher for presentation and discussion of some important updates.
Thank you, Jackie. And thanks
Sure.
again for the warm welcomes and great updates. It's really impressive to see the work that's been done actually in such a short period of time when you look at that snapshot of the past year. Okay. Let me see. What have I got here? Okay. Just to make sure everyone can hear, as we transition through presentations, I'm gonna go ahead and mute everyone. Just ask if you have a question, please feel free to unmute yourself. I just want to make sure everyone online has the benefit of hearing without all the background noise. My update for you, so Jackie, should we just talk about the STR community listening session first, or do you want to do that later?
Whatever order you're most comfortable with.
Okay. Well, why don't we just talk about that real quick, and then I'll get into the presentation, because I'm sure your update probably just piqued quite a bit of interest. So I'll go ahead and just update everyone on that. So we are working through our promise to evaluate the CAPs for various sub areas of Tillamook County. That includes the community of Neocani. In starting that work, worked with Jackie, Amy, and Terry, and County Commissioner Aaron Scar. And we would like to host a community listening session on May 20th. We have confirmed the date, and where I'm at right now is confirming a location. So we'd like to do that listening session in hybrid formats, meaning those who want to attend in person, we're going to make sure we let you know where we're meeting. I'm hoping the NCRD, but we'll be able to confirm that. And then, of course, we'll do this listening session in hybrid format. So those that aren't able to come to the coast to join us, but still want to listen and participate in that conversation, we will have that virtual attendance option as well. So Commissioner Scar has confirmed her availability and attendance for that listening session. And I'm so excited and thankful she can join us. Part of that listening session, I will have updated statistics for you, data that I'm sure you will be interested in seeing, like how many complaints were received this last year, what was the nature of them, what did resolution look like, or any type of enforcement. So that will all be part of that presentation. And then also, equally or more importantly, we'll be hearing from the community and how you feel about how the changes to the STR program are going in your community, particularly in relation to concerns that we have heard about community impacts to community livability. So please stay tuned. Please keep on the lookout for those great updates from Jackie, so that we can make sure everyone knows as soon as possible where that meeting will occur. But it will be May 20th, and we are going to do, I believe, Jackie, did we say 4:30? 4:30 to 6:30?
Yes.
I think so. It's in the late afternoon. So we've got that part. The good news is we know we're going to meet the late afternoon of May 20th, and we'll send out more details on that here really soon, but just kind of more of a save the date announcement. Because we would love to hear from you at that meeting.
4:30 is correct.
4:30. Okay, that's what I thought. You know, it's Monday.
Yeah, and I've struggled with times lately, so.
Oh goodness. Okay, well, glad I'm that makes me feel better. I'm not alone. Okay, so the other thing that I wanted to come back and share with you all this afternoon were updates to the county's code enforcement program. Some of you may or may not be aware, we are on the home stretch. I am on the home stretch of a program update process I have been working on for almost 3 years. So started this work as we were wrapping up the ordinance and the program updates for the short-term rental ordinance. And I'm very excited to share some updates with you today. I know that code enforcement is really important to communities, and I know that the NKN community has experienced, its own concerns with appropriate enforcement of local county ordinances, building codes. And so I am excited to share with you where we're at today and what the new program updates are going to be looking like. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So I've got a couple of things. And Jackie, if you could tell me if you can see that. It should say code enforcement program updates. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. All right. So if anybody has a question, please feel free to unmute, or please raise your hand, and Jackie and Terry, if you guys could help me watch that, because I don't have full visibility when I'm sharing my screen, please.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay. So presentation outline for today. First thing I'd like to touch on is what exactly is code enforcement, participating county programs and departments, what the existing program looks like and challenges, what the proposed program updates look like, an implementation timeline, and then a question and answer. Also, you are the first community to hear any of this. So if there's something that doesn't make sense, I'm excited to hear about it. Your questions are really important, because in addition to sharing these updates with all of you, this is my first opportunity to run through this presentation update. So I appreciate your partnership in helping me prepare to bring this to other communities as well by your excellent feedback. All right. So what is code enforcement? Essentially, it is enforcement of local government ordinances and state laws, so applicable state laws that are designed to protect the public's health, welfare, and safety. It's a general term that all of us use. So by all of us, I mean cities and counties, so local governments, in our efforts to gain compliance. And there's different programs that fall under enforcement, and they are not always the same in each jurisdiction. We all have varying programs. We've got tailored programs. There's the umbrella of land use and zoning. Typically in cities, you'll see more nuisance ordinances like grass and lawns not being kept up. Or you'll see things really specific to height of fences, noise ordinances. And so part of that, it depends on what the city or county wants to do and what they have the capacity to do. But the overarching umbrella truly is around the public's health, welfare, and safety. Most code enforcement cases are complaint driven, meaning local jurisdictions do not have adequate staffing levels to have enforcement and compliance staff that have the ability to just simply drive around. So oftentimes what that means by complaint driven is that we hear about potential violations from you. And those come from community residents and concerned citizens. The goal of enforcement is always compliance. So that's where oftentimes we spend a tremendous amount of time working with property owners to bring situations into compliance and resolve any non-compliant issues. It's a long process. There's a lot of notifications, there's timelines. So one of the first things we try to do is for property owners that respond to our warning letters is to map out a timeline for compliance. Depending on the extreme of the issue or the nature of the issue. Some things can be remedied relatively quickly, others cannot, and they can take years to resolve. These often involves a lot of education. And with that, I would say fining does not in and of itself lead to compliance. So even when you issue a citation with a fine, one, it doesn't resolve the issue. And two, there's an entire process where that may or may not actually be the end result. Enforcement and compliance requires a substantial amount of staff time and resources, and it can be a very expensive process with little to no ability to cover costs. And that is not unique to Tillamook County. That is something almost every jurisdiction, whether it's a city or a county in this state, faces. We used to, under building codes, be able to charge double permit fees when there was a violation to help recoup all of the staff time that went into bringing into enforcement and compliance of a property or a situation. We are no longer allowed to do that. So part of the question is, how do you fund this and this work? And the second piece of it is, how do you balance this work with the day-to-day operations? So with limited staffing, already looking at customer inquiries, permit reviews, land use reviews, license reviews, inspections, somehow, somewhere, we have to fold this program into our work with limited staffing. So Tillamook County, I will say, I recognize our code enforcement program is severely lacking. Being transparent, these are the reasons why. It's expensive, it's a lot of work, and most of us do not have adequate staffing levels to do day-to-day business and also work on enforcement. Okay. Oh, did I miss a slide? Nope, I did not. Sorry about that. I don't want to make anybody sick. So I'm trying not to turn too fast, and I promise I won't scroll. Okay, so participating programs and departments. So in Tillamook County, who's part of the enforcement and compliance program? Well, basically, it's any department that is responsible for enforcing local ordinances, codes, and state law as they apply to our development processes. And so basically, it's the list that I have here. So in community development, it's our building program, planning and zoning, on-site wastewater, which is sanitation, our short-term rental licensing program, and actually our transient lodging tax program. Tillamook County Public Works, it's road ordinances, which most commonly are things like your driveway permits or utilities. Solid waste, which can be anything from trash and debris to vehicles. And then the abandoned vehicle piece, which can be abandoned cars and recreational vehicles on the side of the road that are imposing a transportation safety risk or hazard. Tillamook County Sheriff's Office. So all of these programs are non-criminal, but the Sheriff's Office does provide assistance to us. And they do that in a couple of ways. They can provide assistance by escorting staff to properties for site visits. They can help deliver warning notices or citations. And there have been times throughout the year when the budget has had adequate funding in it for both community development and public works to chip in to help pay for a dedicated deputy in the sheriff's office to help us with code enforcement. That ebbs and flows, but I'll talk about some funding pieces for that we've been able to work out. And then the other partner in all of this is County Council. So when we look at our ordinances, when we look at legal review, when we look at citation documentation, and when we look at evidence, because when we open a code enforcement case, we have to meet burden of proof. So at that point, when we start investigating and take action, the burden of proof to prove there's a violation falls on the county. And so county council oftentimes will look at the evidence that we have to verify whether we have adequate evidence to open an enforcement case and take enforcement action. So as I mentioned in the beginning of this, I've been working on this for quite a few years. And in my time working for the county and in community development for as long as I have, code enforcement and compliance has been just such this massive program that we have not been able to pull together because we just didn't have the resources and we just didn't have capacity and collaboration to the degree that we needed with other departments to get the work done. And so I want to take a moment to give County Commissioner Paul Fournier really some kudos and gratitude where he was able to come in as a commissioner and pull all of us together. So I would say the last 6 months, 8 months, we have had an enforcement working group that he has convened. And that includes Sheriff Brown, Chris Lady, Justin Weiss, myself, Brian Leibel, who is county counsel. He joined us in January. And then Dan Kearns, who many of you may remember, he provided counsel during the short-term rental ordinance updates and program updates. And Mr. Kearns actually helped me start a lot of these updates at that time when we were wrapping up that work. So Commissioner Fournier, I was telling him about the work I was doing. He knew about the needs at Public Works. He has an incredible relationship with the sheriff's office, formerly being a deputy, and said, let me help and let me pull us all together. And that's what he did. And because of that and our ability to sit down together, we meet monthly. We've been able to actually get a lot of work done and help get these final steps that needed to be done for these program updates. All right, so what do program updates look like? It involves a new county ordinance. So this is the ordinance that Dan and I started, Mr. Kearns and I started, that has evolved and then now has been reviewed with input and refinement with the working group. There will be a new county ordinance. It is in final draft form. It is on its way to the commissioner's office. We have to have a couple of hearings to get it adopted. So you'll be hearing about that soon. I just don't have hearing dates and a timeline for that yet, but our work is done for the working group. This county ordinance will not replace the county's land use and zoning ordinances. I'm going to just jump on here real quick and help mute some folks. It will not replace the county's land use and zoning ordinance. It will not replace building codes. It will not replace public works and road ordinances or solid waste, and it will not replace anything in relation to short-term rentals or other existing county ordinances. What it is, though, is I would describe it as the umbrella ordinance that provides the process for when a citation is issued. So all of our codes and ordinances still apply for permitting, review, licensing, and we are still enforcing those. But what we have been missing is that overarching umbrella of a process that begins once a violation has been confirmed and we are unable to get to resolution and compliance. So that's what this ordinance is. And this ordinance outlines citation issuance, what a citation looks like, who has the authority to do that. It outlines pre-hearing processes. It outlines hearing processes. So historically, the county has taken code enforcement cases to justice court if we have gotten to the point of citation issuance. So we have written citations and they have gone to justice court. In this effort to update our program, those non-criminal violations will now be heard by a hearings officer. And we have basically created a new and separate judicial system outside of justice court and outside of circuit court. So if the matter cannot be resolved in this new hearing and judicial process, or if a respondent wants to challenge the action of and the ruling of the hearings officer, then these cases would still go to circuit court. But we have created a separate judicial process for our first action efforts if we have to issue a citation and go before a hearings officer. So the county ordinance describes those processes. It includes things like a preemptive fine. So per violation per day, it allows for a fine of up to $500. And then there is an established preemptive fine because if it goes to hearing, the hearings officer, it is at their discretion to decide what that fine should be if the hearings officer has determined that a violation does exist with that citation. So going to the hearings officer, County Council and I have completed a process to engage with a hearings officer for services in Tillamook County. That contract is also done, and I believe is going before the board, either the Board of County Commissioners, either this Wednesday or the following Wednesday. County Council and I have spent a lot of time working through what staff process and protocol should be if there is a hearing. And those pieces are done with that contract for a hearings officer that will be signed here shortly. And then with that come a lot of process updates that I'm going to go into here in a little bit. And then the last piece is, as I had mentioned, due to staffing limitations and resource limitations, we've all agreed that we really do need to hire staffing to help with this new division for enforcement and compliance. So the other thing, we are starting these program updates, but there is a new job description for a compliance technician. We are going to start out with proposing one full-time person to do this work. It may expand into more, but that position is currently under review by the Human Resources Department with a determination of what will be appropriate for union bargaining. So we've created the position. It's in its own process and doing its own things that it needs to do in the mysterious world of HR and union bargaining. So we will have that here shortly as well. So I'm going to go ahead and walk through this, and then I'm going to go back to the process updates. So county ordinance hearings, spring 2026, those will be publicly noticed. We are required to have a minimum of 2 hearings. This is not a land use proceeding, so it does not go before the Tillamook County Planning Commission because this is a new county ordinance that is separate that applies to multiple departments in the county and their programs. These hearings will be noticed in the Tillamook Headlight Herald. I will make sure communities know when those hearings are also scheduled for, and public comment is taken at those hearings before the Board of County Commissioners. Hearings officer, we've got the contract pretty much wrapped up and ready to go to the board for signature. Staff training that is underway. Our initial processes and steps that we are working on have already been implemented. And then part of the working group, our work will be evaluation of processes. So, with every new program or significant updates to any existing program, there's always lessons learned and things you end up modifying or reworking, in response to, as you see these pieces implemented. So we will continue to do our work with close evaluation. So with the process updates, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come back to those because I think I can get rid of my screen because I can't see anybody, so it makes me feel weird. So I'll go ahead and give you some of those updates, and then we can go into Q&A. So I'm going to stop sharing so I can see everyone, but I'm going to go back to the slide on my screen. Okay. So let's talk about process. What we have learned is that when you take all the pending enforcement cases from those many programs, the list is substantial. We have created a centralized database of all complaints. And what we know is that where most complaints are not exclusive to one department or program. Typically, if there's a solid waste violation, there's a land use violation, or there might be some other environmental violation or concern. And so in our conversations in the working group, what we determined was the best thing to do was to make a centralized database. This database is not public record and it is not publicly accessible due to the sensitivity and the nature of these complaints. These complaints do not include short-term rental complaints and violations. Those are tracked through host compliance, right? So this master list is solid waste, sanitation, building, planning and zoning, utilities, driveways, all of those things, encroachments into road right-of-way. With that, we had to go through and update all of our forms. So the two biggest forms that had to be updated was the actual citation itself, because we were using a format similar to traffic citations, which is not uncommon, especially if you're taking citations to justice court. But with the implementation of this new program with this judicial process, those citations really aren't the best fit. And so we have created a new citation form that is more appropriately aligned with our process and better reflects the specific nature of violations that by law we are required to know on a citation. So Oregon has what's called write and cite, which means that if we are saying that there is a violation or potential violation, when we issue any notices, we have to put on any letter or any form what that specific code citation or ordinance is. And so we have reworked our forms to do that. One of the things that we are hoping will help us, and this is part of our process that's already been implemented and underway, we are implementing what's called a knock and talk program. And this is something that other jurisdictions are doing as well. And we are hoping that it will help us with success of getting folks into our office to actively talk about resolving potential code violations that have been identified. And so there is a new form, it's called a warning of violation. And this form will be delivered to the property by a sheriff's office deputy. And what it is it's basically, it follows a civil service delivery approach. But our hope is that with that connection with folks, early on when receiving a complaint, it will motivate people to come into our offices and talk to us about what any of the potential issues are and how to gain or achieve compliance. We would love to do that and get these issues resolved without having to issue a citation and go to hearing. And so that process has already started. There are several properties around the county with confirmed violations where the deputies are currently in process or have delivered those warnings of violation. And I will tell you that there are a few in your area. So if you see someone from the sheriff's department driving around, it could be possible that they are helping us to deliver those warnings of violation. What those warnings of violation say is that the person receiving the violation, which is typically the property owner, because in these programs, the violation stays with the property and goes to the property owner of record. And if you have an open violation on, or if there is an open violation on a property and the property is sold, the enforcement does not remain with the previous property owner. It rolls forward to the new property owner. So it always, they run with the land, not with the owner, unless it's something specific where it would be an owner action taken. But so our hope is these warnings get delivered and that folks reach out to our offices within the required 14 days. The warnings of violation have the right and cite compliance, so referencing whatever codes or ordinances are potentially being violated. And it says who they can contact and where they need to go to set up that appointment and reach out to us within 14 days. Following that, if that is unsuccessful, we send one additional letter, certified mail, saying we've tried to reach out to you, to avoid enforcement action, including citation. Please come in and see us. And then if that does not get us a response, then we proceed to that next step, which is that new ordinance, which talks about issuing a citation and going to hearing, levying fines, which for things like solid waste violations could include a lien on a property to go clean it up. So we have implemented the warning of violation and the knock and talk. We have the warning letters, which is already part of our program. And then we will be working on the ordinance adoption and the hearings officer contract here in the coming weeks, and maybe this week for the contract. So we've started. Due to the extent and the degree of concern of some of these cases, they will not be resolved overnight. But I would say these are some pretty big steps that we have taken in a collaborative approach to start addressing complaints and enforcement concerns by communities. We are intentionally also trying to slow walk various pieces of this program, including looking at other non-criminal violations and programs within the county, like health department licensing and, compliance with Oregon Health Authority rules. What is making all of this possible with the funding to support this work and this program are a portion of short-term rental operator license fees. So that is how we are now being able to take some of that funding, which is split 75% for housing initiatives, 25% for public safety initiatives, and it is within that 25% that we are able to cover the cost to start doing this work. So that is how we're getting there. So happy to take any questions. I'm sure that was super dry and boring, but I'm just happy and excited to be here to tell you we hear you, we're listening, we know, and we are working to do better. And we are doing that in a collaborative approach with many county departments and Commissioner Fournier. Thank you.
Sarah, we
We have a question from Dave Boone.
Sure.
Sarah,
Yes, Dave.
it looks like the complaints could cover a lot of categories from what you said. Is there going to be a centralized place to file a complaint?
Mhm. That's a great question, Dave. Thank you for asking that. Yes, in the long run, in the interim, if it's something that's community development related, file it with this department. If it's solid waste, it would go to Public Works or other encroachment or driveway concerns or complaints. If you're not sure, send the complaint form to me, because what I do then is I notify the appropriate program person if it's not us. So because we're open, we've always got folks here, and we kind of, I think we're the catch-all anyway. If people don't know where to go or what to do, they come to us, and we're happy to serve in that role. So if you're not sure, send it to us anyway. I would say anything that you are concerned is criminal, that should go to the sheriff's office. Yeah, but everything else, if you're not sure, you can send it to me.
Sarah, just to clarify, you indicated that this program is not for STR violations or complaints. I'm assuming if there's a health and safety concern that would fall within the types of things that you mentioned, that property is just as liable for that under the new program, the code enforcement program, as any other property. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Yes. And the reason why, so in terms of the people that are involved with enforcement, it's the same people, right? Whether it's short-term rental, solid waste, building, planning. But the short-term rental ordinance in and of itself has the enforcement process in it. And it's slightly different than the process for these other programs. But at the end of the day, absolutely. And what we see constantly is where there's one potential violation, there's typically more. So yeah, the crossover is common.
Thank you.
And we have a question from Jane Comerford.
Thank
Go ahead
you.
and unmute yourself. Yeah.
I think I'm unmuted, am I?
Yes, Jane, thank you.
My question is related to the time. I appreciate that when there's a complaint that you are wanting people to come into the office and talk about it, sort of using some sort of a mediation process, it sounds like. But just out of curiosity, I mean, because I think there is a complaint at the bottom of 3rd Street where I live. What is what's the minimum amount of time that you think it can take for resolving an issue, and what's the maximum amount of time? Is there anything that sort of pulls it in and keeps it within some particular time frame?
That is a great question, Jane, and thank you for asking that. The short answer is there's no time frame. It honestly depends on what the issue is, right? So something like somebody built a deck. They didn't get a permit. That could be resolved in a couple of weeks, right? They come in, you say, hey, you need a permit. They say, sure, no problem. We're not happy about it, but we know we've got to do it. It goes through the process, gets inspected, case closed, right? I have seen some cases go on and on and on for years. And that is why this working group, the engagement of county council, one of the things that we will be very diligent about is making sure people stick to that compliance timeline that we agree on and that county council feels is appropriate. If it's an environmental issue like a septic system leaking, that is an immediate, it has to be fixed right now, right? Because if it's an environmental impact, some sort of a safety impact, those things get priority in how in when we address them and how they get resolved, right? Something like that is very different than a deck. Or, I think a neighbor put a fence up on my property. Right. So it depends, and it all just depends on what's happening. But one of our goals through the working group is to try to keep things moving because we know how long they can drag out.
Yeah, thinking that, that someone who chooses to resist, not actively, but passively,
Right.
you send out your notice and it's good for 90 days. So on the 90th day, they do what needs to be done. And then you send out the
Mhm.
next notice. I guess I'm just thinking that, but it
Yeah.
would be what it would be probably.
And that's what happens. That's why code enforcement is so hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you both, Sarah and Jackie, for all the work you've been doing and continuing to do on our behalf. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Jane.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Anybody else have a question of Sarah on this topic? You did such a good job, Sarah.
Oh, thank you. Well, that or people are like stunned into like mind-numbing boredom. I don't know. And I get it if you are. I would say a couple of other things, just kind of some thought-provoking things. Not everything is a violation, right? So there are a lot of times where I get to call somebody and say, I know you're upset. I know this doesn't seem right, but the county does not enforce this. And that's really hard. Because I think we all have in our minds what should be enforced. And what it comes down to is what we have in our program rules and regulations and codes that tell us what's enforced. 3 of the biggest complaints that I get that we don't enforce are fires, fireworks, and outside of short-term rental license properties and quiet hours noise. Now, there are potentially, like, as this working group, as we continue to do our work and we start getting capacity to do new things, things like noise, maybe things like fireworks or some of those other things could come back to us into something. But part of the other challenge is that, a lot of what you see being enforced are in cities. And I'll use Manzanita. Manzanita, like, I am envious of their program, and they get results, and they've got someone there all the time. They're also looking at what, 3 square miles? And what we are looking at is 75 linear miles of coastline, right? And 14 unincorporated communities. And then you throw in things like quarry operation potential violations, because we regulate quarries with Dagami, floodplain, all kinds of stuff. And it gets like, I think I could hire 10 people and give everyone enough to do and more if we, had the ability to have a robust program, not to go out and find people and harass them, but to say, hey, we'd really like it if you worked with us to resolve this issue, and do it timely. But I would say not everything is a violation. The other thing that I would offer is that we do not have the right to enter people's property without their permission. And one of the other things that can make code enforcement difficult or gathering evidence to meet that burden of proof is that visibility from the road is not always good. And you guys as neighbors might see something, or people love to do work on weekends. Let me tell you, I mean, that is the time everybody's doing all kinds of stuff on their property or camping, right? And so even though camping on a property, on a vacant property is not allowed under our zoning and land use codes, by the time we come in on Monday, they're gone. Right. And so some of this becomes incredibly tricky to figure out what to do. And it's not that there's not a desire of our offices to meet our regulatory obligations. It just gets really tricky. You know, and if the violation comes and goes in the matter of a weekend and I don't have evidence, you call me, I believe you. But you know, there's some different pieces to that. So I would say as we work through this, you know, this is not a perfect process. There's a lot of imperfect pieces, but I think the continued communication is what's important.
We have another question from Jane.
Oh,
Jane,
You're on
would you
mute, Jane.
unmute?
you're on mute, Jane. There you go. I don't want to miss what you're saying.
Yeah, no. Thanks again, and I appreciate the clarifications you're making. So along this, let's use this same line of thinking that someone's camping on a piece of property on Friday. I mean, on Saturday and Sunday. They come on Friday night and they leave at 8 o'clock Monday morning when you come into
Right.
work. If neighbors who are the ones that are observing and are the ones that are primarily, I suppose, submitting the complaint, if they're taking photographs, are photographs of value?
Yes.
Okay. So it could be
Especially
documented by a neighbor, the concern that someone has.
correct, especially if they're date and time stamped.
Oh, uh-huh.
Right? Because again, how do we confirm that that incident took place at that time? It can be very difficult to do. The other thing that I would say is, you know, we have a lot of enforcement, and filing complaints is a very sensitive matter. I would say a very sensitive neighborly matter. A lot of people you know, they'll call me and they'll say, I don't want to file a complaint because I'm terrified so and so will find out it was me, you know, and then therefore I'm not getting the evidence and I'm not getting anything else that I may need, especially Jane in that type of a scenario. And so one, I would say if it's evidence that's related to an ongoing enforcement investigation, I am working with county counsel. So if I get those things via email, because emails are public record, you know, if you request confidentiality in that, because this goes with a complaint that was submitted to the office for this property, I am working with counsel now to confirm what the parameters are to keep that out of public records requests, because the complaint forms themselves and like that complaint tracking system that we have, that is not public record because we want to keep it confidential. You know, one, to, you know, make sure folks aren't afraid to come tell us something may be wrong, but also sometimes, you know, until it's proven to be a violation, that's also not fair to the people who have the property. So we're trying to walk that line.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess just, this is Terry DeSaro. Just for clarification, can a complaint come in anonymously? Or you need to have the name of a person who is filing a complaint, even though that might not be public record? Can you remain anonymous?
So the short answer right now, Terry, is you cannot remain anonymous, but that is part of these program updates that we are continuing to evaluate. But there's some legal pieces to all of that we are trying to work out.
Yeah, well, and I can see where it's important to be able to ask someone,
Right.
you know, or, you know, just to know who it is that's filing a complaint, even though, you know, you don't want it to be part of a public record.
Yeah.
I understand the need to be able to speak to whoever it is that is filing the complaint. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And now we have a question from Dave Boone.
Sarah, regarding the fire and fireworks, recognizing the difficulty of enforcement, but it would seem to me that having an ordinance on the record with respect to those, given how our climate is changing and the safety and health issues associated with fires and fireworks, is growing all the time. It would seem to make sense to at least have some ordinances on the books, recognizing difficulty of enforcement.
Thank you, David. I agree. And, the other piece of that is then where is it appropriate for that ordinance to go and who enforces it? Right? Because it's not like, the conversations that the working group has had, it's not planning and zoning, it's not building codes. There are those pieces for burn bans that are already regulated through fire departments. But, as we have these types of conversations, it's who becomes the responsible person, the responsible county department to respond. And I am hopeful that we will learn more about that later from Commissioner Fournier and Sheriff Brown, because I know that's something that they are working on. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, and we get so many complaints about fires. And I understand why, especially to the points David just raised. But again, in the world of community development, I have no regulatory authority to enforce anything of that nature. So part of it is, making sure that the right people that have that regulatory authority are doing that work when it's needed to be done.
Anyone
But-
else? If there are no more questions for Sarah on this topic, I'd like to open the floor for any comments or questions someone might have of either me or Sarah before we close our meeting. Anybody? One thing I wanted to have you talk about, Sarah, is we do have our first subcommittee meeting of our land use subcommittee. And that will be May 11th at 3:30. And it's going to be a virtual meeting. So that will be posted on the website. And I sent out to all of our registered members notice of that meeting just before this one started. So that's something hopefully some of you will want to sit in on. And of course, you'll have an opportunity to make public comment during the public comment period.
Thank you. And Jackie, I can take a minute to show everyone on the county's website where all of this information is contained.
Please do.
Okay. So I think that would be a good thing. Yeah. All right. Okay. So everybody see the county homepage? Okay.
Yes.
And I'm going to show you all of this with the caveat that we are also working on a major website migration. I'm not saying it's going to function better though. So I'm just saying we're doing some updates. I'm still not sure what all that means, but if something gets broken, that migration has started, please reach out to my office and let us know so that we can fix whatever you discover is broken before we do. Okay, so go to to the county homepage, which is tillamookcounty.gov. We're going to go to community development under departments. And then, oh, probably one thing to note to everyone, we have transitioned to a 4 days a week, 10-hour work schedule. So we have consolidated our operations from Monday to Thursday. And we that is an operational strategic action. We have determined that most of our customer needs are those days. And I am hoping that with this shift, it will give us the ability to focus all of our resources on those days and for an extended period of time. That also means, especially with summer coming, for those of you that may have inspections in the future, regardless of what type of an inspection it is, we may be running inspections to 5:30 at night, maybe even up to 6 o'clock. So there is, let's see, I'm going to go back here real quick, just because this is important. So there is, down at the bottom of the community development homepage, if you have an inspection that you've requested from the department, you can go to the daily inspection routes and click on that. And all of our inspections for the day are there. So sometimes they do change the order of these depending on if they have a prioritized inspection, like a concrete truck is coming. Typically they go north first, then south, but at least you can see if you're on the list. But like Jeff, you can see Jeff had 13 stops today, and some of those had multiple inspections at one stop, and they go from the north to the south end or south to north end of the county. So they can have pretty heavy schedules. So just want to share that with you guys too. But if you come to the community development homepage, you're going to scroll down on this blue bar on the left-hand side and click on Citizen Advisory Committees. And then Neocani is right here. You got a picture of your beautiful beach, Neocani Mountain. And then everything that we're doing together is in addition to the nkncac.org site. You can also find everything here, including all of our virtual meeting links for your meetings. So again, you're going to do this one more time: government, community development, CACs, Neocani. And so I'll put today's presentation slides up here, and then our meeting materials that I'll have for the May 11th kickoff meeting for the subcommittee. Land use subcommittee will go here. And then anything that I prepare for presentation with the listening session on the STR cap, license cap for May 20th will also go up here with those meeting recordings, so that anybody can come back at any time and visit that to see.
I will also send out, this is assuming you can stand one more email from me, save the date with the information for the STR CAP listening session with Sarah and Commissioner Scar. Like Sarah mentioned, we don't yet know the venue, but we know it will be a hybrid meeting, and I'll put out more information once we know for sure where it's going to be. But I want you to be able to put it on your calendar and be sure to save that, because it's going to be really important to get community input on that topic.
Thank you, Jackie.
Any questions on any topic that's on your mind?
We have a question from Ken Jones.
Yes.
Okay. Sarah and Jackie, thanks again for all your time you're spending on our community. We really appreciate it. I'm wondering if you had any quick updates on the SCR cap issue.
Thank you, Ken, for bringing that up. So we are going to have, that's the meeting Jackie and I are talking about on May 20th. So we're going to have a community listening and feedback session. So I'll have some good information for you.
No updates until then. Okay,
No updates until then. That's right.
okay.
And Ken, I know you had volunteered for the subcommittee on that topic. And I'm not sure if you were on the meeting earlier when I mentioned that as things have progressed and the county is now going to do an evaluation across the unincorporated communities, the of those caps, we don't feel like we need to pull together the subcommittee. We instead will have this town hall listening session with Commissioner Scar and Sarah.
You,
Thank you.
Anybody else? Any public comments of folks that aren't from our area? And I'm going to ask if those of you who just have, I know we have one person on phone. If you would please identify yourself for our records. And then we have some folks that are identified just by a first name. If I can get you all to unmute and just fill in the blanks for us, that would be real helpful. Just speak up once you're unmuted and state your name, first and last.
Kevin Russo.
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear.
I think it was Kevin Russo.
Oh, thank you, Kevin.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
We don't know who is on the phone ending in number 88.
Sarah, can you remind me or remind them how to unmute on their phone?
I would be happy to. So you press *6 and wait just a moment, and then you should be unmuted. But it takes just a second for it to kick in. So *6 to unmute. And sometimes, Jackie, it doesn't always work. So I would say maybe we just note for the record that there was a participant from that phone number.
All right. And let's see. We've got Sears. Are both of you participating? I'm just scrolling through. That looks like it.
Yes, Jackie, at one moment we had 39 people participating. Right now we have 32. So I've got a pretty good record of who has called in, but I do not know who the number ending in 88 is.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for your cooperation on identifying yourselves. That's really helpful to us. And thanks for signing on tonight. We appreciate your time and your participation. And hopefully we'll see some of you on the 11th and on the 20th at our town hall meeting. But you'll be getting information, and again, appreciate all your support for our community. Take care, everybody. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you, Jackie. Bye.
Thank you, Jackie.
Take care. Thanks, Terry.